Hi, everybody. A very important update here on Hurricane Idalia. Expected to make landfall later tonight through tomorrow. I have new concerns with storm surge, flooding, and winds, including severe weather and the possibility of tornadoes. Folks, if you don't already subscribe to my channel, I'm a no-nonsense weather forecaster based out of Greenville, South Carolina. I would appreciate your subscription right here. The way I do weather on YouTube is different from the way that I do it on television, but in the way, it's the same. My goal at the end of the day is to keep you informed and to keep you safe, whether you're watching in the Western Carolinas or anywhere in the United States, because knowledge is power and it can save lives. And I know that my viewers here in the Western Carolinas have family everywhere in the country, and for that matter, a lot of folks are traveling right now. So YouTube is just another way to keep you informed and to keep you safe. I do long-form updates. I do long-term outlooks, for example, a fall outlook, a winter outlook, and I'm always watching out for severe weather. It's my expertise. 11 a.m. advisory came in here with Hurricane Idalia. North winds, it's moving north at 14 miles per hour, which is a faster clip. It's now on its way, and I'm going to tell you why that might actually strengthen it, not weaken it. It depends on the way the angle comes in with those winds, and in this case, I'm afraid it's helping strengthen this storm. It's blowing off the top of those storms, and it's allowing it to breathe. It's a more efficient machine. And winds are sustained right now at 85 miles per hour. Let's look at the new track from the National Hurricane Center that just came in as well. Still expected to be a Category 3 hurricane at landfall, with winds now up to 125 miles per hour. Do you see what the National Hurricane Center is doing here? They're slowly inching it up a bit. I told you yesterday this was going to get close to a Cat 4, and in this case, we're 4 miles per hour away from that happening. Okay, as it moves through Florida, it's going to be extremely rough. Beginning now, really throughout the rest of the day. Tornadoes will be a concern in Florida. For my friends in Central Florida, please tune in to my colleagues at West 2. Tony and the team are keeping you informed around the clock today. Just a great way to stay plugged in there. As we go through Wednesday, this storm's going to approach the Carolinas, and we will see impacts. We have seen impacts in the Western Carolinas today. No matter where you're watching from, we have had impacts, and I have greater concerns that as we go deeper into the day, this storm is going to get stronger and it will begin to intensify. And next on the list will be a Category 2 hurricane. Let me show you what that looks like. A Category 2 has winds at 96 miles per hour, goes up to 110 miles per hour. This is when you start to see storm surge kick up to 2 to 5 feet. Shallow trees could fall. Of course, a storm surge is just an average. It depends on what the coastline looks like where you're at. That really determines how bad it can be. But this storm is expected to change into a Category 3 hurricane as we go into the overnight hours, and we're watching that. We're watching that very closely. Winds are expected to intensify up to 120 miles per hour. Major damage is seen with this. You see the roofs on top of the homes beginning to wobble. When you have a hurricane landfall like this, homes can be just ripped apart. Fallen trees will block roads, and power and water can be out for days, if not weeks, in this type of a landfall. Let's go to Category 4 because this is expected to get close to a Category 4 in strength, and I want to show you what that could look like. Category 4 has significantly more storm surge. This is when roofs begin to rip off the homes, and this is when hurricanes are, all hurricanes are dangerous and potentially deadly, but a Category 4 can be unsurvivable because you have that inundation of water covering the entire first floor of homes directly on the coast, and then you have the wind that's the equivalent of a strong tornado being right over your house for hours and hours. Now, the average tornado goes through in seconds. Imagine that tornado just sitting right on top of your home for hours at a time. That stress rips roofs off homes. And if you have to go up higher in your home to get away from the water, at that point, the roof's being ripped off. And that's why evacuations almost always are in place anywhere near a Category 4. And water and power can be out for weeks, if not a month. A Category 5, which is what this is, not expected to get to this strong, okay, but it's just catastrophic at this point. There's not much structure that survives the Category 5. Most framed homes, poles, businesses are destroyed completely, just gone, right? Trees and poles are just ripped off the ground. Power outages for weeks, if not months, are in place. Let's look at the storm right now. It's on its way to a Category 3, in my opinion. Very close to a Category 4. We do have access to the radar now because it's close enough to the U.S. mainland that we do have an eye wall. This thing is really ramping up. You don't see that eye wall on the satellite by itself, but because we have the radar, we do. We have already had tornado alerts in place for Fort Myers to Naples, and these outer bands are notorious for producing rotation. So those of you watching right now up I-75 into Central Florida, Port Charlotte up through Winter Haven to Tampa, into Lakeland over toward Orlando, by early this afternoon into the evening, your tornado concerns are going to go up. You're going to have some flooding concerns, probably at the time many are getting home from work. So please take that into note. Visible satellite is just phenomenal. It is technology we didn't have to this degree 3 years ago, okay? We're able to see that the storm is bubbling up just right there in the last few frames now that we've got plenty of sunlight to give us great eyes on this. I'll pause it. Let's see. Let's rewind it a couple more frames. Right there. I mean, my word. Look at the level of detail you have in this. Extremely strong storms in here. Winds that are approaching, gusts that are no doubt approaching 100 miles per hour right there around the eye wall, which would sit right there. I mean, folks, this is a textbook hurricane strengthening. You got, these high thin clouds right here circulating around it. That tells me this hurricane is healthy. This hurricane is strengthening. And there is just nothing to really slow this thing down until it begins making landfall. All right, let's look at that because I do have brand new model data in that gives us a clear picture of where this is going because as the infrared satellite shows, this thing's getting wider too. The impacts from storm surge are significant here. Folks watching in Tampa right now, I'm expecting you could have some issues all the way up toward the Carolina coast. Let's bop right back down here to Florida because I want to show you the before and after. Here's what normal would look like along the coast. Okay, that's the coastline, the map. You got to think there are homes, there are businesses in here. Look at what the storm surge forecast is. A lot of that area is going to be underwater. Not only underwater, but as much as 16 feet underwater, okay? That's when the waves, the storm surge, remember that analogy of basically, I've got little ones, I've got babies, pushing with both your hands the water. My kid does that all the time, right? Splashes water out, drives me nuts. But imagine this powerful hurricane pushing the water down, except for instead of pushing a bathtub, it's pushing the Gulf of Mexico. That slings that water into coast, and instead of the waves crashing where they normally do, they crash some 15 to 20 feet inland, and that can go up into the waterways, Chiefland, Yankeetown. I mean, we're talking about significant water inundation, and that can be dangerous. That is when it becomes very, very, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go in your home that you can escape that. And if you go higher in your home, that's where the winds are tearing apart the homes. So I want to show you the spaghetti models, and they're doing some funky things here, folks. You've probably seen this if you haven't already. Some models here are hinting this thing wraps back around and comes back for a second go at Florida. However, I haven't showed this for that reason. If it did, it would not be strong. It would just be kind of a tropical wave or an entity of moisture. But to a state that's hurricane weary, especially after this, you don't want to see anything. The models are having a tough time with that, and I'm smarter than the models, right? I can tell you the models are just showing me a signal that there's very poor steering current after it gets out here to sea. So I think it's going to get out here somewhere couple hundred miles off the coast of the Carolinas and fizzle out through Labor Day weekend. I don't think that happens close to shore, so I still expect it to be a beautiful Labor Day weekend for the Carolina coast, which is good for tourism on a holiday weekend, okay? I would not cancel any plans. This does look to going out and kind of fizzle out. Even if it did wrap back around, it would just be the remnants thereof. It would be some rain, some moisture wrapping back around to Florida. But the GFS started that with yesterday and kind of had people going, huh? But yeah, it's one of those things you got to kind of outsmart the models. Our global models, the three of them, the European, Canadian, and the American model, in pretty good agreement. I will say they slid a little bit more inland, which means for us in the Western Carolinas, we could have some extra rain and some wind with this. Under the hood of the GFS model, I've showed you this. It too, with its green model runs, is 26 different flavors of the GFS. The main one is the operational one you see in the yellow. A lot of them are to the west of that main line, which means it's trying to show us it may try to trend a little bit more west with its next run. The European is the opposite. It's a little bit more to the east, but it too came on shore compared to yesterday, with it kind of riding right along the Carolina coast, which is why I have concerns for storm surge. I'm going to do a couple of different things here, folks. I'm going to turn this around. I don't want to make you dizzy, but I want to show you the perspective of Idalia as it's coming in. This gives you a different look here, all right? The reason I want to do that is, remember that analogy with the baby pushing the water? Well, look at this. You've got a major hurricane pushing water into these areas. That's why the storm surge is so significant and so deadly, all right? So as this continues to move inland, looks to make landfall still around Cedar Key. Looks like the model just updated, and it's going to continue up into South Georgia to where Hilton Head, Charleston start to get some very heavy rainfall Wednesday afternoon. Wednesday evening, we've got heavy rain continuing here or picking up here across the western Carolinas. And going into Wednesday evening, it's crossing into South Carolina, crossing over the Savannah River here, going through Statesboro, Hilton Head getting some very strong winds. But again, I pause it here at 8 o'clock for two reasons. One, it's when the storm's crossing into South Carolina, but two, to show you this is high tide for the Carolinas. I have big concerns here that this storm surge may catch a few off guard from Tybee Island and Savannah to Hilton Head to Charleston and Myrtle Beach. You've got wind, same analogy as what's going on in the Gulf, but at this time, that wind is getting pushed in from the Atlantic at the same time as a high tide, and unfortunately, can't make this up, folks, at the same time as a king high tide lunar tide. So you got the moon making it an extra high tide, even if you didn't have a tropical system here. But then you got this powerful tropical storm, which is going to be packing a punch in and of itself, but pushing a lot of that water inland. So the average of 3 to 6 feet could be the storm surge in these areas, which if you do the math there, a lot of the Charleston area and some of the Barrier Islands, Isle of Palms, stretching down to Hilton Head and Tybee Island, a lot of those areas are near sea level. So that could cause flooding in areas that, maybe don't see that often, okay? Let's go on into Wednesday evening. This thing's pulling away from Greenville-Spartanburg. We'll get some rain through about midnight. Then it pulls on up the coast, and by the time you wake up Thursday morning, most of us are looking good. Here we are with wind gusts as the storm approaches Cross City or Cedar Key. Then it moves up toward the north quickly throughout the day. Rainfall totals, we're estimating between 3 and 6 inches being a good bet along that track. But some areas are going to pick up closer to 10, and that's why inland flooding, even in the Carolinas, will be a concern. Locally, let me map it out here for you hour by hour. We've got some rain picking up as the day goes on Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. Here we are, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. This thing's pulling away, and better weather is settling on in. Wind gusts are going to approach that 30-mile-per-hour mark as we go into Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. Could get close to 40 miles per hour in some locations as we're watching this roll on through. Again, folks, if you don't already, if you can appreciate my style of forecasting, it's not for everybody. Honestly, the way I forecast or tell the weather is different than on TV. TV, I have 3 minutes to get my point across. On YouTube, we can be a lot more long form. I can kind of go in depth in a way. And I want to let you know that my commitment wherever I'm broadcasting is to keep you safe when it comes to severe weather. I give you all the details you need and just the facts, basically, okay? And that's my goal, is to have a clear picture given to you so that you can make decisions to keep you and your family safe. Whether it be tornadoes, hurricanes, or snowstorms, my commitment to you is to be transparent in my forecasting so that you can stay safe. And my goal at the end of the day is to save lives. All right, here we are. The hours before Idalia is moving on shore. I'll have much more later today, including the track updates. I'll do more videos as the new models come in. And at some point, we're going to shift to live coverage and hourly updates here as we continue to watch Idalia move up the coast. Stay safe, everybody, and stay tuned. You know I'll keep you posted.